Welcome to The Explainer. So today we're diving into the somewhat abstract and, let's be real, often misunderstood world of strategic management consulting. We hear buzzwords like synergy or transformation thrown around all the time, but what do those actually mean when a real company is on the line? We're going to trace this incredibly fascinating journey, starting from a foundational 1980s management theory, all the way to a literal multi-billion-dollar government pitch. We want to see exactly how the biggest firms package and sell these huge concepts today. Check this out. Back in a 1980 journal article, management pioneers Bob Waterman, Tom Peters, and Julian Phillips dropped a super simple yet totally profound thought. An organizational structure is not an organization. Now, this totally flips a massive misconception on its head. I mean, we so often think that fixing a broken business just means, changing its org chart, moving some boxes around, maybe firing a manager, creating a new department. But this quote, it tells us that a picture of the thing is absolutely not the actual thing. There is just so much more beneath the surface. Okay, let's dive into this. Here's our roadmap for the explainer. We'll start with the illusion of structure, introduce the McKinsey 7S framework, and break down hard versus soft elements. Then we'll enter the world of the modern consultant, look at the anatomy of a pitch, and wrap it all up with the business of strategy. All right, Section 1. The illusion of structure and the incredibly messy human reality behind it. So back in the late 1970s, early corporate strategy was kind of stumbling. Why? Because executives completely ignored the messy human reality of how companies actually operate. And the story of how this changed is literally wild. In 1977, McKinsey launched two different projects. The major, heavily funded one focused on business strategy over in New York. The second, well, it was seen as this kind of marginal side project in San Francisco, and they handed it to Tom Peters to study organizational effectiveness. But get this, despite being considered the less important project, it somehow came with an infinite travel budget. Seriously, infinite. Peters flew first class around the world, stayed at the best hotels with absolutely no carefully designed work plan and no specific theory to prove. He just talked to genuinely smart, really interesting people to figure out what made excellent organizations tick. And the seemingly inconsequential, blank-check project, it ended up sparking a massive paradigm shift. Moving on to Section 2, the McKinsey 7S framework, which really became a foundational secret in consulting. Emerging straight out of that crazy globetrotting project, we get the famous McKinsey 7S framework. After whittling down a massive 700-slide presentation, 700 slides, can you imagine? Peters, Waterman, and some academic colleagues got together at a retreat in 1980 to finalize this model. And the framework is built on this really simple but totally profound premise. For an organization to perform well, 7 interdependent elements absolutely must be aligned and mutually reinforcing. Those 7 S's are strategy, structure, systems, skills, style, staff, and shared values. Basically, if you're trying to fix or change a company, like going through a merger or bringing in new leadership, you have to make sure all 7 of these gears are turning together perfectly. Which brings us to Section 3, hard versus soft elements. Let's dissect how this framework actually operates. So how do all these pieces actually interact? Well, the crucial thing to understand here is that not all S's are created equal. The framework actually divides them up into 2 camps. On one side, we have the hard elements. That's strategy, structure, and systems. These are super easy to identify, right? You can just pull up a company's strategic plan or look at their formal reward systems. Boom, there it is. But on the flip side, we have these soft elements, shared values, skills, staff, and style. Now, these are way harder to pin down because they are deeply, deeply cultural. We're talking about core competencies, how managers actually behave day to day, and the organization's fundamental beliefs. And what Tom Peters and his crew realized was a real game changer, those soft elements, the ones early American management completely ignored, they're actually the real drivers of organizational excellence. Okay, Section 4, the modern consultant. Let's take this from theory straight into practice. So, how do you take a squishy theory about soft elements and build a legitimate, massive business around it? To see how that happens, let's look at Deloitte, one of the oldest professional services firms in the US. Their evolution literally tracks right alongside the invention of modern strategy. Their parent company was founded way back in 1895, but right around the time the 7S framework was hitting the scene in 1980, the whole consulting industry was just exploding. By 1989, Deloitte and Touche was established through a huge merger, and then in 1998, they officially rebranded their consulting arm. Fast forward to 2022, and we see them using these exact same transformational strategies to bid on a massive, high-stakes public sector contract. To really ground this abstract theory in reality, you just have to consider the sheer scale of a consulting giant like this today. Deloitte operates globally with over 225,000 employees spread across more than 150 countries. The specific proposal we're looking at today comes from their government and public services practice, which all on its own has over 20,000 cross-functional professionals. Think about that. When an organization of that size talks about analyzing your staff or your structure, they are bringing an absolute army of resources to the table. And you might be wondering, why on earth do they dedicate 20,000 people just to government services? Well, it's because of numbers exactly like this: $1 billion. That is the estimated annual volume of products and services purchased under the NCPA master agreement that Deloitte submitted this 2022 proposal for. So yeah, this isn't just academic theory anymore. It is a visceral, incredibly high-stakes business. Let's look at Section 5, Anatomy of a Pitch. We're going inside an actual RFP. This proposal is fascinating because it brilliantly transforms lofty management theory into cold, hard, tangible business math. If we look at this tiered fee schedule from the NCPA administration agreement, you can see that for the first $30 million in annual sales volume, a 2% administrative fee is paid. That drops to 1.5% up to $50 million, and finally down to a flat 1% for anything over $50 million. What's absolutely wild here is just the sheer volume of consulting work that is expected. I mean, you definitely don't build in pricing tiers for sales over $50 million unless you're planning on delivering a massive, massive amount of organizational change. And this right here perfectly illustrates how a firm like Deloitte positions itself using those soft elements we talked about a minute ago. Their proposal is proudly stamped with the tagline, "Making an impact that matters since 1845. That is a brilliant direct appeal to the shared values part of the 7S framework. In their cover letter, they don't just talk about tech, they emphasize their 40-plus years of experience delivering results on complex transformational journeys for state and local governments. So they aren't just selling a new IT system, right? They are selling a deep cultural partnership. Now, to actually deliver on all of that, Deloitte breaks its consulting services down into 6 distinct functional offerings: core business operations, customer and marketing, enterprise performance, human capital, mergers and acquisitions, and strategy and analytics. And if you squint a little and look closely, you can literally map these directly back to our 7S framework. Strategy and analytics obviously covers strategy. Human capital is all about staff and skills. Core business operations handles systems and structure. They've essentially built an entire corporate architecture specifically designed to hit every single S in a client's organization. Moving to our final section, number 6, the business of strategy and how firms handle those tricky soft elements. So how does a modern, massive firm actually prove it can handle those squishy, soft cultural elements? Well, they do it by showing that their own shared values are totally aligned with the communities they're serving. In their proposal, Deloitte explicitly details their supplier diversity programs. They are officially committing to using small and diverse suppliers. We're talking small business enterprises, minority and women-owned businesses, veteran-owned and historically underutilized businesses. They even point out their goal to support skills development for these suppliers through mentor-protege relationships. It really goes to show that managing staff and shared values doesn't just stop at your own employees. It extends all the way down the entire supply chain. So, wow, we have really journeyed today. From Tom Peters flying first class around the world with an infinite budget, all the way to a modern billion-dollar consulting proposal that puts his exact realizations into practice. Now, I want you to take a hard look at where you work. Are your organization's 7 S's actually aligned right now? And if they aren't, do you honestly have the tools to fix them yourself? Or is it finally time to bring in the consultants? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep asking questions and keep learning.